Greetings, my name is Bihus and you are watching Our Money, a program on anti-corruption investigations. Today we will tell you how the state loses money through bad faith judiciary. We won't talk about indirect losses, although they are colossal, investment opportunities lost by the absence of the rule of law, low economical level because of unprotected private property, and all the other things on a pretty long list of woes, which determine our level at the global economic arena. But no, today we will talk about direct losses of the state budget and about payments made according to the rulings of the European Court of Human Rights. That's how it works. If you think that the state of Ukraine did you any harm, you can sue it. Not in Ukraine itself, of course. That's what the European Court of Human Rights is for. To win a case against a country is a very long and difficult task. But if you succeed, if you prove to the ECHR that you were harmed by the state of Ukraine, if, for example, you were a victim of an unjust court ruling, the ECHR will decide on a compensation, which will be paid from the state budget. However, to be fair, the budget is not the guilty party. In theory, Ukraine should later collect the money from the unjust judge or prosecutor who did you harm. However, in the last couple of years, Ukraine has lost almost 1,000 cases in the ECHR. It had to pay more than $76 million in compensation. Guess how much of that money was later collected from the judges or prosecutors? Zero. Nothing. We all had to pay for their crimes, while the state just forgave them. Next, a couple of sad stories by Danila Makrik. On the 24th of February 2002, Alexander Basenko, a Kiev resident, boarded the Kiev Express tram. When two ticket collectors approached him, he showed them his student ID. The collectors told him that the ID is void and demanded he pay the fine. Alexander refused. All three disembarked at the Hanata Yuri station. Then a conflict happened, which soon reached the European Court for Human Rights. One of the collectors suddenly kicked Alexander from behind. I felt that my left foot didn't support me anymore and I started to fall. When I tried to get up, I felt that my knee was facing the wrong way. They ran away there. The same day, Alexander Basenko turned to the police. The investigation lasted more than 5 years. The police inspector Osolinsky dropped the criminal case because I allegedly did not have any complaints. The prosecutor's office decided to open another case and ordered its investigation. Then I got notice that that case was dropped. I filed another letter to the prosecutor's office again. They checked it and sent the case for yet another reconsideration. Alexander could not sue the ticket collectors for compensation because the investigation was taking so long. In 2008, he turned to the European Court of Human Rights. In 8 more years, the court ruled that the state must pay Alexander compensation of more than €11,000 of state money, not the assailants. Meanwhile, one of the investigators in Basenko's case saw some success. Today, Vitaly Pankov is the chief detective of the Department of Economic Protection of the National Police. As you were one of the investigators on that case, I'd like to have your opinion on this. To be honest, I don't understand who you're talking about right now. When the state violates your rights through its representatives like judges, prosecutors, etc., you can sue the state at the European Court of Human Rights and demand compensation. Ukraine has lost over 1,000 cases at the ECHR. Violating the Convention on Human Rights has cost the state more than $75 million. An average amount of compensation for brutal treatment is about €10,000. They can reach 20 and even 25,000 in some cases. The problem is that the ruling of the European Court won't include the name of the violator, just the fact of the violation itself. After this, the law enforcement must reopen the case in Ukraine and find out who is guilty. The state can collect compensation money from its agents, but only after they're recognized as guilty in Ukraine. That is stipulated by the law, and this has never happened here. Why? On the 9th of September 2011, Veniamin Tymoshenko, together with 150 more workers of the Aerosfit company, announced a strike. The reason was colossal salary debts. The day the strike began, the management of the company filed a lawsuit. They sued the strike committee. But according to the legislature, a strike committee is neither a natural nor a legal person, so they couldn't have even filed a lawsuit, let alone won it. However, the Boryspil Rayon Court managed to pull this off. It's a really shameful thing when you understand that this cannot be happening, but you still lose the lawsuit. You know, we fought hard, but when you see the judge listening to your speeches and slowly falling asleep, because everything was decided beforehand. Judge Vitaly Zhuravsky banned the strike. In 2015, the European Court of Human Rights decided that the ban violates the freedom for peaceful assembly. Ukraine had to pay €20,000 of taxpayer money to the wronged workers. They have to punish the judges making illegal decisions, the prosecutors who cover up the illegal decisions, and so on. I think that it is they who pay for this. Let them sell their mansions and pay the compensations. Judge Zhuravsky has some mansion. He didn't declare it, though. Why isn't this house in your declaration? Because this is my daughter's house. If you're using it, you have to declare it, and you know it. I've mentioned everything in the declaration. It says property owned by you or your family members who live with you, and where you live too. I don't know, I didn't see that box there. Thus, to make the violator pay from his own pocket, they must be officially recognized as such, and that's more difficult than it seems. The investigator says, "My actions were legal, that was my opinion. This was confirmed by the prosecutor who signed the request." The prosecutor says, "I've evaluated it. It was legal, which is confirmed by a court ruling." The judge of first instance says, "The legality of my ruling was confirmed by the Court of Appeals ruling." Over 4 years, the Ministry of Justice has sent 1,600 requests to the law enforcement agencies on the decisions of the ECHR, which we consider to be grounds for new investigations. We don't see any of them resulting in anything, unfortunately. Basically, the ECHR told them that your decision was a violation. The ECHR said that the violation wasn't committed by judges because the case went through both appeal and cassation. This wasn't a violation made by the judges, but by the state of Ukraine, which didn't amend its legislation in time. Time plays into the violator's hands as well. The victim must go through the Ukrainian courts, then the European, win the case, the state must compensate the losses, and only then to find them guilty. Thus, in practice, when we have the decision of the European Court, the limitation period for prosecution is over. On the 24th of August 2011, the 65-year-old activist Helena Shvidka arrived to the Taras Shevchenko monument. Viktor Yanukovych had just placed his wreath there. The wreath had a ribbon which said, "To Taras Shevchenko from the Ukrainian people and the president Viktor Yanukovych." That's when the woman got the hooligan motivation, as the court later said. The ribbon was very strong, I couldn't tear it. A man approached and tried to help me. I didn't allow him. I asked the people for a pair of scissors, and they gave them to me. I don't know where they found it, a rusty little blade, and I cut the president part off of it. That's it. A judge of the Shevchenkivsky District Court puts Helena Shvidka behind bars for 10 days. In a couple of years, the ECHR decided that the judge violated the freedom of expression. The state had to pay Helena Shvidka €5,000. They have to pay from their own pocket. Only then will they start thinking whether it's worth it. Judge Dmytro Kravets was fired in January 2016 by Petro Poroshenko for his decision against the activists of the revolution. He didn't pay for Helena Shvidka's case. All the money paid, all further violations of the rights of Ukrainian citizens stem from the irresponsibility and lies. They all understand they won't be held accountable. Judge Zhuravsky from Tymoshenko versus Ukraine still works at the Boryspil court. So the €20,000 was just wasted? Well, you see, I was upholding the law. I did what was stipulated in the law. The problem is that it's a systemic problem. We don't have one specific executive who allows for the violation of human rights. That's just how the entire system works.
Так функціонує вся система.
16th of December 2010, a group of 4 young activists came to the Kiev Memorial of Eternal Glory. Activist Hanna Sinkova fried some eggs on the eternal flame. We decided to express our protest against the misuse of gas in the first place. We still think it's misuse.
По-перше, нецільового явно використання газу, і на сьогодні це продовжується, ми його досі вважаємо нецільовим. І по-друге, що, фактично...
Secondly, it's a symbol of the totalitarian era and has nothing to do with actual memory of those who fell in the Second World War.
Про полеглих під час Другої світової війни.
The police detained Hanna for 4 months. She was charged with desecration of a grave and put in jail for 2 months. When the restrictive measure expired, the court did not prolong it. However, the activist was not set free. I was left behind bars, and the judge even confirmed that I was in jail. He saw me at the court, and he sent me back there, where I had to spend the 3rd month without any court decision. The court was obliged to pick a restrictive measure if it didn't pick one after a certain time had passed, and I was in a cage at court. They had to release me from the cage, and I wasn't detained anymore. The ECHR made its decision in February 2018. The European Court didn't find political persecution in Sinkova's case. However, for keeping her in jail without a court decision, the ECHR decided on a €4,000 compensation. My judge is in hiding. It was Rodion Kiriyev. He won't be found anywhere soon. Many just don't have to lay low, they won't be searched for. If a law enforcer violates human rights, he has to be prosecuted by law enforcers, and they mostly don't want to. The Council of Europe stressed this several times, that we have to create a new law enforcement agency, because law enforcers are reluctant to prosecute and investigate themselves. This must be a special agency for these matters, and that's the State Bureau of Investigations, which was already created. We have high hopes for it. There was a certain Alexander Basenko who was beaten up by tram ticket collectors. Haha, nice. Do you remember this? I don't, to be honest. Actually, the vast majority of officials to whom Ukraine owes its losses at the ECHR didn't just suffer any financial losses. They didn't even get a little scolding. Let me suggest that those who could have held them to responsibility clearly understood that I could have been in his place myself, and thoughts like this produce that specific kind of official's empathy and understanding. The more pleasant it is for me to present you the report from the Judicial Qualifications Commission, where the subject of our program came to get judicial life tenure. Didn't work. You know, I can't really call the pace of judicial reform and the renewal of judicial staff optimistic, but at least they didn't let the judge who banned Euromaidan stay. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. 30th of November 2013, 23:55. Police with the people. Judge Bohdan Sanin makes a decision prohibiting anyone from gathering peacefully on Maidan, Kreshchatyk, or any other central streets in Kyiv for a month. Thus, the 1st of December protest was held despite the ban. In a week, the people get dispersed by the Berkut police. In a couple of months after the ban on protests on Maidan, the judge's wife bought herself a Bonetto yacht. She spent almost $50,000. Their family income is Sanin's judicial allowance only, so it's not clear where she got the money for the yacht. She had an intention to take part and engage in corresponding commercial activities. It wasn't successful, unfortunately. It did not take off because she wanted to... Yacht trips across Dnipro were becoming popular, and she was intent on... Sanin's decision to ban the protest was deemed to be a violation of his oath, but Sanin himself wasn't fired. Instead, he was made the press secretary, basically the face of Kyiv District Administrative Court. These days, Sanin could have been granted a life tenure as a judge if he had passed the Judicial Qualifications Commission. I'd like to invite Mr. Bohdan Sanin to the hall. Take heart, there are some questions for you. I'm ready, thank you. The judge explained his decision to ban protests in the center of Kyiv for a month with a lack of time. I had to make a decision by midnight. I received the case in 1945. I probably didn't have enough time in the first place. So you didn't have time. How did this influence the decision you made? Did this make it hard to figure out? From 8 p.m. until 12 a.m., the sides could have filed additional explanations if there was time. The commission was skeptical about Sanin's ban. It violates the right to freedom of peaceful assembly provided by the Article 11 of the Convention on Human Rights. Sanin called the violations insignificant. The violations of the procedure were only insignificant. The audition lasted for a long time and had a dramatic ending for Sanin. To recognize the judge of Kyiv District Administrative Court, Mr. Bohdan Sanin, as such, who is not suitable for the position he occupies. It's unlikely he is going to serve any more justice. To recommend the Supreme Council of Justice to consider firing the judge of Kyiv District Administrative Court, Mr. Bohdan Sanin. The Public Integrity Council thinks that Sanin was a symbol of the judicial mayhem of the Euromaidan times, so the commission just couldn't approve him. If the commission had reconfirmed Sanin, it would have destroyed itself with its own hands. At the same time, for some reason, the commission successfully reconfirms judges of Euromaidan times similar to Sanin instead of firing them. The same day, the commission vetted Sanin's colleague, Judge Viktor Danilishin, a person less famous than Sanin, but no less interesting, because he had made a similar decision to ban peaceful assemblies several days before Sanin did. He also behaves in a rather arrogant way at his own hearings. Don't raise your voice at me or I can yell at you. But the judge gets to be asked about everything but his ban on peaceful assemblies. And they even make a break to familiarize themselves with additional circumstances, not about Maidan, but about the judge's wealth and conduct. To suspend the interview of the judge of Kyiv District Administrative Court, Mr. Viktor Danilyshin. Viktor Danilishin's ruling became the grounds for the first criminal cases against the protesters. However, they decided to fire Sanin and to suspend Danilishin's interview for some reason. Some of the Maidan judges were already reconfirmed by the commission. Take Anzor Sadulayev. He had revoked the driver's license of a Mezhira activist. He was later reconfirmed and now works as a judge of Shevchenkivsky District Court of Kyiv. One judge of Euromaidan goes, another stays. So that's what judicial reform looks like? 50-50, like the roulette? Since we've already dedicated today's episodes to problems and joys big and small of the Ukrainian judiciary, it's time to tell about the successes of our legal department. I've emphasized this several times, and I will once again, that our team has its own legal department. They turn the investigations you watch into reports to the prosecutor's office, NABU, NACP, police, fiscal service, wherever they belong. And I have to mention that they don't just do it with our investigations. Any journalist or civil organization is welcome to join. Thus far, the Tisny Project, that's how it's all called, supports 23 organizations in almost every region of Ukraine. And if you want your journalist work to turn into a criminal proceeding, you definitely have to write the email you can see on the screen right now.
Однозначно варто написати на електронну пошту, яку ви просто зараз бачите на екрані.
It's worth it. I promise to make quarterly reports about the achievements of our project. So listen, since just the beginning of the year, we have processed 70 public procurement violations. 30 of them are being reassessed. 40 turned to cases opened and lawsuits won. For just the last quarter, we filed more than 180 reports to law enforcement agencies. We have made 66 criminal cases possible, some of them opened through the courts. All in all, we help journalists and activists all over Ukraine, in any cases ranging from pure corruption to some kind of illegal construction. So write us. We will help you too. No strings attached. That's all for today. You can watch any of our episodes on our YouTube channel, rate us on social media, and if you have an interesting topic, better send it to our email then. See you on air in a week. You watched Our Money with Dennis Bihus. Goodbye.
Побачимось за тиждень. Це була програма «Наші гроші» і Денис Бігус. До зустрічі.